Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live session on how conversational messaging is driving marketing and commerce for FMCG companies. The customer in today's digital age is really short on time. He wants everything at the tap of a button. Gone are those days, when he would wait in a queue for his turn to come at a counter and he would inquire, pay, or buy. Today, be it shopping, grievance redressal, making inquiries, or even payments, everything has to be quick, personalized, and a one-on-one discussion for him. Today, if a brand is not able to create a convenient and seamless experience, then it runs the risk of losing the customer, maybe forever. So while the customer experience always mattered, it is now taking a front seat in the marketing arena post-pandemic. As a result, brands are now investing into multiple technologies to create those better experiences that lure more customers. AI-powered conversations is one such technology that is helping brands create better experiences, especially in the FMCG industry. It is quick, simple, and effective. Think about it like that. Years ago, you would have to stand in a you would have to stand waiting in the line of an IVR for your turn. But with these AI-powered conversations, it is very quick. Customers across the country have multiple queries around these products, which means a lot of load on their call centers. AI-powered chatbot answers the first-level queries of the customers in a personalized manner, thereby reducing the loads on the experts who can then be aligned to do more complex queries. With these chatbots, customers can directly interact with the brand, make orders, pay, and get stuff delivered without too many interventions. And all this can be done while sitting at home. They don't have to move out. Increasingly, more brands are realizing the power of this technology and are beginning to deploy this to make their operations leaner and efficient. So now, let us hear from the industry stalwarts on how they are using this technology and how it is helping them. I now welcome the panelists for the day. My first panelist for the day is Mr. Srinivas B. Vijayaraghavan, VP Marketing Gupshup. Welcome, Srini.
Thank you, Devesh. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. My second panelist for the day is Mr. Rajneesh Kumar, Head Digital and Direct to Consumer from ITC Limited. Welcome, Rajneesh.
Thanks, Devesh, and great to be here.
Glad.
Thanks, everybody.
My next panelist for the day is Mr. Utsav Malhotra, COO Noise. Welcome, Utsav.
Hey, Devesh. Thanks for having me around.
Thank you.
Look forward to
And my last panelist for the day is Ms. Resha Jain, VP Content Marketing from Sugar Cosmetics. Hello, Resha.
Hi, Devesh, and hi, everybody. Really excited about today.
Great. Lovely to have, all of you here on the panel. Looking forward to it, So, my first question is, and let's begin with the overall customer experience, how there has been a change. Post-pandemic, there's a huge change in the overall customer expectations with the discussion over personalization taking the front seat. So, you all are from the FMCG industry. What do you think, the trends that you have observed, in, how personalization is taking the front seat? Resha, let's begin with you first.
Well, actually, the change, I think, has been really all over the place. Let's just understand customers right now. They have lesser time. They have a lot of choices. Okay. They want immediate attention. They have absolutely best-in-class expectations. Otherwise, you're easy to discard. So I personally think personalization has become even more important, and immediate attention has become very important. Hand-holding whenever they need it, quickly turning the tide and understanding, okay, they have less time, they want to run through a transaction, or they have a lot of time and they definitely want you to give them an experience. So I think personalization has become very important because people are fighting for choice.
Right. What do you think, Utsav? What has your experience around it?
So, Devesh, I do agree with what Resha is saying, that there's been a paradigm shift in expectations during the lockdown. It's also to do with the fact that newer need states have emerged. And there has been a concerted, definitive shift, and hence you encounter a lot of first-time digital shoppers where the expectations are very different.
Okay.
Coupled with that, most people hold inside their homes and their spaces very quickly ran out of patience, and hence the expectations, given the time on hand, were very, very different to what they were expecting from a consumer experience standpoint.
Correct.
I think, given the context, the really dynamic part here is that whilst there are businesses that scaled up because of digital delivery, the customer had less time. So you were trying to solve for that dichotomy of how do you bring about personalization, shorter turnaround time, and still balance the volumes.
Okay.
So clearly, there was a need for everybody to think on their feet and come up with those solutions.
That's true. That's quite true. Srini, what do you think? I mean, like, what's your experience? You work with a lot of brands. Understand their feedback. What has been, your understanding around it?
So I feel that the pandemic has accelerated a trend that was anyway emerging, the trend towards technology-based solutions, the trend
Mhm.
towards a digital customer journey. And the pandemic has really leapfrogged maybe 5 years of evolution into packaged it into maybe 18 months of revolution, more than evolution.
Mm.
So I think what we are seeing in the market is that a lot of traditional physical customer journeys are now going digital, and we're seeing it across the board. We're seeing it in banking, we're seeing it in education, we're seeing it in obviously in the FMCG and the retail space as well. And I feel that the dimensions that brands have traditionally used, which is a website, which you see with a lot of D2C brands today, and the mobile app. So those are, I believe, the two big dimensions of the digitizing the customer journey that most brands invest in. So the one trend which is emerging is the usage of the messaging app, where most of the buyers and consumers or shoppers are already on. And we believe that that will become the next dimension of digitization, which has been accelerated again by the pandemic and all these other forces. So those are some broad trends that we are seeing.
Rajneesh, your thoughts on this one?
So I have a little different take on this. So while we're saying personalization, actually what we mean is humanization, because the same pandemic also created a huge need for humanization. Your contact with the world as you knew it stopped. You used to go to office, you used to meet your local bania, you used to shop, and you used to gather around with friends and all. Everything stopped. So the need for interaction with humans, human interaction, all got enhanced. Now, given a choice, none of us wants to talk to a machine. Let's admit. I mean, where's a chatbot or a bot or artificial intelligence or whatever you would like to say it, when you pick up a call or when you're interacting on a bot or whatever interface it may be, you want to talk to another human being, because somewhere, I mean, all of us are more comfortable that somebody has heard me and he will take care, right? So the humanization of chatbots or any other technology, when you talk about that technology, is very, very important. So whatever an LP, ML, AI is running at the backend, that is fine. But the customer, it has to come out as a human being and as good as your local bania, right? It should appear that they know you.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Risha also talked about, and also talked about the same thing. And all of us understand that the more data somebody gives to us, as a owner of a website or a business, they want us to know them better. That's why they are giving us that data. So if I have come to your website 10 times and shopped around on different categories or put something in the cart, next time I want to shop, they assume that you, and that's, I think Resha was talking about, the expectations very high. So if 10th time I'm shopping for some product and still do not know that I love this product, or you don't give them a coupon code or a special discount, that's where the humanization and personalization that we are talking about. I think the expectations are the more data we are giving, in exchange, we also expect a better service or a better experience, so to say. I think that's what my take on personalization will be.
No, that's pretty interesting, the way you put it. I mean, like, the humanization of technology is very important, because if I am, I've been doing this 20 years to my local bania, and all of a sudden a pandemic stops me, and, I have to order everything on my app. And, after doing it 3 times, if the brand doesn't know me, or it's not able to comprehend what my needs are, and it's not able to play that, that overall loyalty thing, then it becomes, there's a clear miss which is there. Srini, coming to you on this point, I mean, like, how can FMCG brands, create that human angle, that personalization, for the audiences?
Yeah, so I think the first step is obviously a step that most of the brands have taken, which is to create a digital platform for engagement. The second thing is to convert physical touch points into digital journeys. So we like I might buy a toothpaste or a grocery or rice or atta. So I get a physical package in my hand that I can touch and feel. But how can that surface, that packaging be leveraged to create, maybe with the QR code, a digital journey, that a digital conversation that I as a consumer can have with the brand. So that is another step that a lot of companies have taken. And then the ease with which a consumer today can, as Rajneesh was mentioning, how easy is it for a person like me, for example, to build an order list from let's say ITC or any other brand that I want, and that should be made very smooth and frictionless, using a channel that I'm really comfortable in. Those are some of the things which are being done, and in the back end, which is kept transparent obviously to a lot of consumers, is a high degree of data analytics and integration that is taking place to create an omni-channel experience. So today, as a consumer, I can go to a website or to an app, and today I can even use WhatsApp, for example, to look at a catalog and place an order and make a payment and get delivery. So all of these things are steps that companies can take, and many of them have started to do this.
That's interesting. That. So, I mean, like, I'll again come to you, Resha. I mean, like, which of these steps, you have taken at your brand, to interact with the audiences, and what has been, I mean, like, it's brought to the brand. How have you drive, made your operations leaner, been able to scale that, and drive even more effective results with the consumer interactions?
Look, I'll be honest, Devesh. I personally think with our brand special, like, we use chatbots and we use a lot of other things. But I think the key to cracking this, let me be honest, is not only technology. Technology needs, but I think technology is still kind of there. I think what's happened to the Indian ecosystem is that we are still very stuck in the way we communicate with our audience. Chatbots are annoying somebody. It's true. It's true if it's not done well, because till the time you're communicating with them in a 10-step, thing where, hi, how are you? How can I help you today? It doesn't make sense, So you have to become as conversational as the youth of today or the people who are shopping online are. You speak to them in their lingo. So actually for us, that has been a very important thing. We're trying to make and acceptable, because of course a lot of things change differently, and acceptable yet a more fun experience with chatbots. So I think we have a long way to go in terms of the amount of scale, but I'm a big fan of, say, Swiggy, because मेरे को ये लगता है कि when I am pissed off at Swiggy, if nothing else, वो जो 2-3 मिनट पहले वो मेरे को शांत कर देते हैं through a chatbot, also helps them out, in the long run, and helps the person who's going to pick up the call later also. I mean, everybody will think I'm a tyrant, not that, like, but you have your days. And I just understand that doing this at scale will require technology. There's no way around it. But doing it smartly will require communication to lead this, So that's where we are with it.
Utsav, how has been your experience, while, deploying the chatbots, while using them? And do you concur with, Resha's thoughts? I mean, like, it has to be, that the conversation has to be that very local lingo. I mean, like, you have to identify. So, she gave a very interesting perspective. For me, if I'm an audience, I am interacting with, let's say, the chatbot of Sugar Cosmetic, then it has to first identify that, okay, I am a male, I am between X and Y age, and this should be the lingo or the kind of interactions that I have had with the brand previously. I don't know, there are multiple possibilities of multiple permutation combinations. So what has been your experience?
Let me give you a context on this, which is slightly divergent than what Resha is saying. And I think the narrative that Rajneesh and Resha have built primarily around humanizing the experience is something that I completely concur with. That there is a need to bring about intelligence and sanity in how bots approach these conversations. But the fact also is that the moment you start standardizing, you realize that there is a lot of voice agents who are actually humans, but are working to a script. So I think humanizing is a part of intelligence and conditioning. What we need to recognize is that most bots can potentially be configured with more information and ability to personalize the experience than a human possibly can at a much faster pace.
Right.
You also have to think about scalability in the context of a bot being available to you, reducing that wait time. And whilst we may say that the bot is an irritating aspect today, because that learning has a learning curve, right? At the end of the day, we keep referring to it as intelligence and machine learning. But the fact is that there is a learning curve to the instances that you come across and hence start personalizing the experience.
Correct.
So the fact is that there is a lot more that can be built as intelligence. You could activate 20 agents or 200 agents where the experience is uniform. The priority given to a customer is uniform, as opposed to somebody having to wait for those 8 minutes waiting for somebody to show up and say, okay, now let me figure out what I want to do for you. And by then your patience already run out. Right?
I want to pick on an example based on a conversation that I was having with the CMO of an FMCG brand. And he told me that his brand, the only way for, I mean, their D2C website is still being built out, but the only way that their consumers have to complain or give any feedback is by leaving comments on their social media channels. So he was saying that I've actually deployed 5 junior people every day to keep scrolling through our social media, try to find comments, try to find how can I reply to them. Now, an activity like this, imagine that you're a tier 1 FMCG brand, you have millions, hundreds of millions of customers. You can't possibly solve for it completely with live agents. I mean, you have to bring in technology. I mean, today there are social listening bots that will listen to comments and then start a two-way conversation with the person. And then at one point in time, again, I also concur partly with what Rajni said, that somewhere that human element has to come in, but there has to be a balance between how much you will do it in an automated fashion and how you configure your process to hand over to a human agent at the right point in time. So that is the design of that journey is extremely important.
Yeah, I actually want to jump in and I want to say that I completely agree, guys. Like I said, there is no denying that the scale that everybody is operating at, demands that technology comes in and intervenes, because humans can't do it. I also really agree with Utsav. One of my pet peeves is the fact that humans are not humans anymore. They will not let go of the first 4 questions, and you're like, bro, I'm talking to you during a meeting, आप please मेरे लिए इतना कर दो. I mean, मैं आपके साथ करना चाहती हूँ काम, but it's difficult because they will ask you the first one. So I agree. I'm just saying that while we are doing all of it, and like Srinivas said, that this, and like you said, that there's a learning curve, right? So technology will learn, AI will become smarter and smarter. All I'm saying is that there has to be equal amount of work. I feel like technology is really caught up, but messaging has not caught up as much, to really effectively use that technology.
Coming back to my point, Srini, you made a very interesting point, and we'll come back to that, in a bit. What is the point? A bot should hand over the query to the
live agent.
Yeah, the customer care agent. That is a very interesting point, because I have been having, chats around this, and most of the industry folks are now working towards this dimension. In the entire journey of the discussion. So Rajneesh, what has been your experience with these bots, with the chatbots?
Yeah, so see, basically, the whole chatbot thing has become, omnipresent right now, and it's become more CTO-led than customer-led. So I don't have a bot, so I must have a bot, because everybody else has a bot, right? And we don't have a bot on our website, and there are reasons for that. But my experience has been a lot. For example, we started right in the COVID, we started something called Store on Wheels, when we realized there's a lot of demand for ITC products and they are not available and consumers want it. So we started a small initiative. It went on to become very big. At some point in time, we started getting the leads, and through WhatsApp, we started collecting them through a bot. And the entire journey from booking a lead for the Store on Wheels to come to your apartment, the entire journey was actually done on a bot. And we did thousands of those, during the pandemic. My experience there was that the artificial intelligence by itself will not become intelligent. That is the nature of the beast. You have to make it intelligent, right? And it is the same thing whether, I think also made a point about the script. So sometimes, and I think Srini also talked about it, even if in social media handles, your agents are given a script and they start acting like bots. So whatever you ask, they will answer the same question, right? So then it doesn't make a difference whether it's a bot or a live agent. So whether it's a bot or live agent, the amount of information, and I think that is something Amazon does beautifully, because the kind of information, the amount of information they provide to the bot, they can answer almost every query that you have as a customer very, very successfully, right? And that's why you will love interacting with a bot. You don't care whether it's a bot or. So I have been interacting with live agents, and sometimes and you have to stop and say, "Are you a bot?" Then no, sir, I'm not a bot. Then why are you acting like one? So because you are just repeating the question, same answer without even bothering about my question, right? So we have to make sure that they have the rights. And the poor guy is doing that. Why? Because they don't have the information. They don't have the live information that where is my order, right? And that's why they're trying to give some standard answers to that. So if you give the humans or the bot, give them the right set of information, which will enable them to answer the query in real time. I think that's where you're empowering them. That's number one. And you also have to understand that there's a natural language processing, then there's machine learning, and then there's artificial intelligence. So there's a journey to it. First of all, you have to understand what is natural language, whether your bot is able to process the language or not. Then are you making sure that it is learning as a machine, and how much learning does it have? And then comes the whole thing about artificial intelligence. Without providing the right set of information to the bot, no artificial intelligence is going to work, because you have to make sure that it has the information and it is also learning on a daily basis to become more and more intelligent. And that's where you'll find the bot probably more efficient and more effective than even a live agent.
That's true. That's true. Srini, coming to you, you work on the supply side, of this technology, and you speak to a lot of brands. So at what stage of evolution should a brand actually, deploy the bots? I mean, what is your understanding, from this?
Yeah, I think this is applicable to companies at any stage of their digital evolution, because the technology and the platforms themselves are quite mature. So many platforms you can even do and configure basic structured bots on your own in a self-serve model, or there are experts who can help you. Mm-hmm. And most of the brands, like I said, already have 2 out of the 3 things between a website and an app and a messaging channel. 2 out of the 3 things they will have. But the easiest thing, in my opinion, to do would be to start using messaging apps for deploying the bots, because this is the vision that we have and the trend that we are seeing, that there is a proliferation of websites. There are lots of options. There is a proliferation of mobile apps. There are only so many that you can download on your mobile phone. But you're guaranteed that most of your consumers are already have some form of a messaging app on their phone. It could be WhatsApp, it could be Instagram, or whatever it is. So building this technology is not very hard, but and also deploying it on any messaging app of your choice is also not very hard. So it is something that any brand, irrespective of where they are in their digital journey, can take up and make a reality.
Okay. So Resha, I mean, how do how do you see, measuring the effectiveness of the chatbots? How do you measure the effectiveness?
I think there are some very, very important things to measure effectiveness. The first few metrics would be turnaround time, for queries. If they go down significantly, I think that's a very big win for a brand. The second thing is, of course, NLP and scores, because the kind of satisfaction that customers report, and especially negative if you see a lot of more than positive sentiment building,
Correct.
If there is a very, very good measurable impact on negative sentiment, I think then a chatbot is seriously successful. The other things that we see are also the kind of comments and social and the kind of like we have app store ratings, we have a lot of feedback loops. So those feedback loops have to turn out right. But for us right now, very important that turnaround time has to come down significantly. We have to take up a lot more queries in the same time than we used to earlier. So scale is something that we're looking at, and effectiveness by seeing the quality of comments that we're being able to and feedback we're being able to control and generate.
Interesting. Any points, Utsav, you want to add into this?
I think Resh has pretty much summed it. The fact is that whether you talk about FRT, which is the holy grail to all anxiety, if you're able to address that, the TAT eventually, the feedback loops and the NPS. But the other bit that I want to also bring about is, and that's something that I'm picking up on the chat also, where people talking about scalability. I think, and that's probably the most pertinent point here, that one has to understand that for a business at scale, given the number of transactions that most of our businesses tackle, and the reach that you're trying to address, there is a very clear index of agent to incident ratio, and there is only as much that man hours can compute to. And and one doesn't understand that at the end of the day, when you talk about scalability of something like this, your tax go for a toss, your FRTs go for a toss, your costs go for a toss, and it's just not the manpower cost, right? There is the cost of infrastructure and the tech that comes alongside, which in this instance is pretty much a flat line. You could have 2,000 bots at the same time addressing the same need, as opposed to 20 agents trying to double up a superhuman. So I think some of those metrics are extremely important for businesses to look at it from that lens. But I think the metrics that Resha stated pretty much stand the same.
That's interesting. That's interesting. And now Srini, coming back to your question, the point that you made actually, at what point, the bot should be able to hand over the query to the live customer care agent. Okay. So how does one define that? I would want all of your views. Let's begin with Srini first.
Yeah, I think, of course, it depends on the journey. Like, for example, your bot can, and this we're talking specifically about a support kind of a scenario, where you have your frequently answered questions, which is the simplest thing that a bot can handle. Like, and then it moves into slightly more complex queries. Let's say if I've bought something and I want to arrange a return. Right, it's a slightly more complex than a frequently asked question that what is the price of this, or where is your nearest store, or something like that. So today we have the technology where even we can create steps for those complex queries to also be answered. Like, okay, what is your address? Then what is the replacement product? Enter it, and so on and so forth. It's only when it gets beyond that, where your bot is not able to answer the FAQ plus the more complex queries, is where you kind of bring in the live agent. So it also depends on the kind of business, but roughly based on what we've seen, these are the kind of queries that typically where you have to jump between, let's say, different departments of your company to answer a question. Like, I want to return, but can I use my loyalty points to sort of pay for the delta that I'm having to incur? Now that is where you have to bring in some CRM element and all of that. So there, for that level of queries, you can address it to some extent, and only then you bring in a live agent. So that's one scenario that I can tell you.
Rajneesh, what do you think? In this entire process that, I'm as a customer, I'm talking to bot, and, the discussion has reached a point, where, I believe that bot will now have to hand over the query to the live agent. Do you think there are chances that, the person who I'm there after, 5, 6, 7 layers of, hi, hello, how are you? And then coming to the point, I am getting annoyed, and I might run the risk of, stopping the entire discussion, and then maybe, or directly pick up the call center. Does it work like that? How does it go?
So a very simple way to measure this is that you go to the back end of the bot, do some analysis, and see where are the most consumer journeys is stopping. Mm-hmm. If you just see that, that's a simple data point. That's where the customer is getting annoyed. And you'll find that there are 4 or 5 or 3 data points where most of the customers are leaving the bot. They're getting annoyed because either the bot is not able to handle, or the nature of query becomes too complicated, right? And that's where you understand that the next step should come in, saying that, hey, would you like to speak to one of my friends, or one of my colleagues, or something like that, and you hand over. And you start building that, you will know that where the consumer journey is actually stopping. So after, if you find out of the 10 or 15 different ways that the query is going, you find that these 4 are the maximum areas where maximum people are dropping. then
Yes.
you start, giving the cue that, okay, do you want to speak to somebody, like a live agent or whatever you want to put it. That's the copy you want to put there. But just by analyzing the data at the back end, you should know that where the consumer journey is dropping and where people are actually wanting to, kind of, while they understand that they are talking to a bot or they are getting some
Right.
level of understanding, but when they are not able to get the answers, that's where you analyze and say, okay, I want to give you the option of opting and talking to a real human.
Correct. Utsav, I mean, like, do you, have experience, have you experienced such instances, in your journey of working with the chatbots? I mean, like, how do you see this scenario?
So I think, Devesh, the reality lies in the fact that there is no accidental transition happening, right? You pre-configure the bots to solve for certain solutions. I mean, in our case, 6 out of 10 instances are instances of people talking about the availability of goods or the order status at large. And
Right.
those are instances that can easily be tackled. And I'm sure similarly, other businesses have their real-time matrices for what the queries pertain to. So there are some solutions that you can solve for and pre-configure the bots for.
Mhm.
You know the moment you haven't configured for a conversation or for a solution, then that's beyond the bot's ability, and hence it's what Rajneesh referred to as a complex conversation, right? And that automatically becomes a non-closed and open loop, and in which case a live agent needs to step in. But I think to a large extent, yes, you could audit at the back end and figure out where the break in the journey and the experience is, and that's a clear telltale sign that something's amiss. But the fact is that you pre-configure those experiences in thought, because the fundamental really lies in educating that bot for what they can tackle.
What kind of, not exactly what kind of the volume, I mean, like, but how much time you think, because it's all about machine learning and it's all about, understanding the data, like Rajneesh mentioned, that, you have to understand what are the key steps where, the customer might feel, I mean, like, okay, the chatbot is not able to understand that, or it's the right point where the handover should be there. So how much, that overall learning, that educating that bot, how much time does that take? I mean, like, the kind of volumes that it takes.
So for us, Devesh, we've had instances where the bots manage to function smoothly on certain queries in a week, which is essentially just stating the facts.
Yeah.
There have been instances where it's taken about a 90-day learning curve where you've had to look for cases, instances, and I think it's also a function of the number of data points that you have for a particular query. The more data points that you continue to look at as a business, the finer you'll be able to bring that solution about. And for us, that's a weekly audit process, and we do it as a regimen, and therefore we are able to solve for it. Do we have 100% efficacy? The answer is no. It's an ongoing process, and I think the real question pertaining to transition really lies in not the businesses feeling comfortable about it. It's about the consumers and customers feeling comfortable. And I think right at the outset, we define that at the end of it, people want to speak to a human at the other side. To which my sense is that there is two types of consumers. There are consumers who want a human speaking to them, but there are others who are okay with information given out, and they can't bother less because that saves them time, effort, and like Resha was saying, that so long as you can put a lid on my anxiety, I'm fine. And I'm willing to wait for those extra 5 minutes by the time the delivery happens. So a lot of that preemptive solutions can be brought about if you build that education in the bot. But I think I would say we are at a cusp where in the next very recent near foreseeable future, we will be able to start mastering some of this. Also, I think we've been slightly askew to thinking and channeling the conversation around chatbots, which can be limiting for a certain audience. If you talk about the CVBs, the conversational voice bots, that's a whole different animal, and they are the ones that will define the future of where this automation will go.
Resha, what has been your experience in, in your industry, in your categories particularly? I mean, like, where customers are probably interacting with the bot and, they are able to resolve queries then, or they are not able to resolve queries at a certain level, and then the handover happens. So at what points, I mean, like, or at what stages, especially with Sugar Cosmetics, that handover to the live agent becomes very utmost important.
I agree with everybody here, and there is no other answer to it. What happens is very simple. If it is a very transactional query, where you want to know why is my order delayed, when will it get there? Can I order through the app, this or that, my 20% discount coupon. Usually when it comes to money, at some point in time, we do see the customer wanting to pick up the phone and wanting to talk to somebody. Other than that, like Utsav said, yes, there are many people who actually are just, including us, who need transactional support sometimes, and sometimes they need experiential support, So at that point in time, we see transactional support happening very, very seamlessly through a chat box, actually. But where we find they want to know the shade, they want to know how to pick their foundation, because makeup is extremely personal, what will, whether when they want to know something specific, like whether is this vegan, is this cruelty free, at that point in time, they definitely want handholding. When they are pissed off because their order is delayed by 2 days, they definitely want handholding. A chat box is not sufficient, unless and until they've asked a very specific question, when will I get my order? And the chat box says 28092021. So that is different. And if they're okay, but we do see that at one point in time, they definitely want to talk to humans. I think that's the nature of the business they're in.
That's the nature. True. Very interesting points. So,
Devesh, if I may, I wanted to ask, if you would allow me, I'll ask one question picking on what Resha said. So we spent a lot of time talking about support and answering queries, but how do you see the whole buying side of the journey, where product discovery, right? Do you see that whole process evolving? And the reason I'm asking that is because today, you see there are features like WhatsApp for commerce, where you can take your entire catalog, what you have on your e-commerce site, and put it on WhatsApp. And I can pretty much browse your catalog and buy on the app itself. So how do you see product discovery, this product discovery side of things, and the payment side of things changing with this whole conversational and the messaging and the chatbot technologies?
Srini, actually, I'm very happy that you asked. This is actually an ongoing super important thing that we're doing. We've understood that as newer and newer audience are coming online. We've understood that product discovery and also, really understanding, almost giving a BA experience. So you have a store-like experience. A BA is a beauty advisor. When you go to a store, somebody who tells you and recommends products to you, because of course, India is a very nascent stage beauty market. So you want to be guided by experts, especially here. So at that point in time, we definitely think, and I'm telling you right now, I don't think what we are doing in terms of communication for product discovery is up there. And that's why this is on as a conversation, very important one, that we need to get a lot of support. We need humans and an entire customer delight team dedicated to this, to hand-holding. And this customer delight team, for other functions, it's always supported by chatbots or through other, AI-powered tools, because it will be very important to scale it. You have to respond on that scale. So this, I think, is extremely important and is happening right now. My personal experience is it's very important, and we are behind in powering this. But I think many people are behind. Thankfully, we are all trying to scramble and keep up with technology. So very important. And I think one of the most important use cases that will emerge for chatbots and many other AI-powered technologies.
Sure.
Interesting. So
especially for our industry, I agree. Very important.
How about Rajnish? How about your industry? Like, I know that traditionally it's been very distribution oriented, and now
as we speak, my bot for ITC store is actually ready on WhatsApp, so it's going to go live any day. So we are in the final stages of testing. So when that answers your question, and I'll just share the journey a little bit when trying to build this, and why I wanted to build it on WhatsApp. Because if you look at today, everybody on the phone, how much time you actually spend on WhatsApp. That's one. Number two, when you look at the population, right from 18-year-old to 65, 70, even 75, everybody is very, very familiar with WhatsApp as an environment, as a platform. Now, during COVID especially, WhatsApp actually became probably one of the largest e-commerce platforms, because everybody was ordering from the bania by saying, "Boss, ye bhej do."
Correct.
I have seen in my house, vegetables coming through WhatsApp, eggs coming through WhatsApp, bread coming through WhatsApp, and what all, right?
True.
So, of course, this became a very important channel, and this is something everybody is very, very familiar and at home with, just the interface part of it. Now, imagine if in the same environment, I can put in my store, and it can become, and that's my brief to the, all the copy, and some of the copy is written by me, myself, is to become like Gupta ji, right? The familiar neighborhood banya. If you can really talk and walk like Gupta ji, exactly what he says, the kind of language he uses, or, knowing the customer also, what kind of products, obviously it will happen over a period of time. I think there was a question of how much time does it take? So it is not time, it is the amount of data. Why is Google most effective? Because it has the most amount of data. You can give the entire data in the world in one day, and the bot will have the most intelligent answers in the same day. It's not a dimension of time, it's a dimension of how much data you are giving to it, right? So the more data we will have and we'll feed to this particular, conversational bot, which we are using, building with Yellow Messenger as a platform. So the more data we'll be able to give, and the more consumers which will thrive and start, doing trade and commerce with us on that platform, the more we will know. So if somebody wants to buy biscuit, which is the top biscuit I should put on top, right? The first biscuit I should put on top. If you're looking at atta, which is the atta I should, if somebody is actually buying so many times over a period of time, I will know that what they've been putting in their basket and which atta should come on top rather than this particular category versus this particular category, right? And that's how I'll build intelligence, and that's how I'll try to do more and more commerce, keeping sure that the entire journey is very, very seamless. They do not feel out of the environment. At the same time, when they are doing commerce, they are feeling it is, as all the elements of commerce are already there in this. And when they are actually, interacting, all the elements of chat are already there in this, right? So the smiley and those things also, what we use with emojis, those have to be part. You can't be very straight jacketed and straight face just because you're doing commerce on a bot, especially. So when you say, hey, you want to buy, and put a few smileys there, once the transaction is complete, maybe just offer a rose. I'm just being a little dramatic here, but yeah, something like that, so that the whole experience becomes very, very lively. And also realize that, somebody will probably use a laptop to order the entire 50 items for their household, but WhatsApp they will probably use for a quick, 10 items that I'm doing this chat event. I'm not doing it, don't think that I'm doing it, but actually I can order groceries on the side. So I am conversing with you guys, and on the side it should be so seamless and so quick. And for example, the first option I've kept there is that what did you buy last time? I have to just press one repeat order and the order is done. I have to just pay, right? Because that's what I want to top it again and again, the same items, right? So I have to make sure that, somebody can, and I do realize on WhatsApp, people will not order 50 items on WhatsApp. They'll probably order 5 or 10 or 15 items. That's a quick checkout thing that they will do. So keeping those things and the consumer behavior in mind, you have to enable commerce and conversation. And that's where I think the WhatsApp for, I'm probably doing some marketing for WhatsApp for business, but yeah.
No, that's a great point, because that's really the vision, or the what we feel is the next dimension, right? Where now ITC as a brand will live on my WhatsApp as another friend or family member. It is that intimate, right? I don't have to step out of that experience. I don't have to go to a website, or I have to go to an app. So that's really what we believe. The vision of conversational messaging is that the brand becomes such an intimate part of your inner circle, and that you can actually talk to it like you would with a friend or a family member, or even the Kirana store, Mr. Gupta or Gupta ji.
Yeah.
That's very one pertinent thing that you mentioned, Rajneesh, which I want to actually understand from you, Srinivas. I mean, when you use the bots on the WhatsApp, when, to order the items that Rajneesh was talking about from the local bania, why is the cart small? Or is can the cart be bigger? I mean, or is it like a quick checkout thing? How does that work?
No, I think there is an option right now for you to add a certain number of items to the catalog. And I think we are in that first generation of enabling this. And we're doing it for several customers. And then the number of items that you can add, that you can see and explore will increase over time. And then the whole checkout process will be like a app within an app. So within WhatsApp itself, you will get that entire cart experience, the payment experience. All of
So
that will
Devesh, let
happen
me
with-
clarify, sorry, I'll just, because
Yeah,
see,
sure.
what I wanted to say is so what Srini is saying, all the entire experience of cart, everything is exactly the same.
Okay.
What I'm saying from a consumer behavior perspective, not from the technology or the platform perspective.
Okay.
Platform will allow you to add 100 or 50 products also. But
Okay.
would you want to add a 50 or 100 products from a WhatsApp environment? That's what I think that people will typically use it for, more for top-ups and repeat orders and those kind of things, rather than, because it will take a very long time, because the interface is different. It's a chat interface. So it is, when it becomes live, you will see. And that's again not limited by me. That's limited by WhatsApp. That's not limited by the retailer, because that whole environment is controlled by WhatsApp.
Right.
And if you look at that environment right now, the way it is, it will be very, very tedious to add 25 or 50 products.
Interesting. So now, before we move on, I mean, there's a time for an audience poll. Can we have the audience poll? Yes, we have the first question.
Devesh, can you keep the conversation going while our audience? Because I had a specific question for Utsav, because I think in his segment, I would say it's more of a lifestyle product, like noise and gadgets. So do you see consumer behavior slightly different from, let's say, a cosmetic industry or the traditional FMCG industry?
So true, absolutely true, Srini. Also, because you have to realize that we are operating in a segment where almost 50% of the product experience is beyond the hardware that you actually buy. So troubleshooting ends up being a large part of the queries that you are tackling. And that's where you have to draw the line to what the bot can tackle and where you need the human interface. Because at the end of the day, there is only as much troubleshooting, especially for a technical device, that can possibly happen by virtue of a bot. We've had instances where somebody hasn't taken the protective tape off the charging point and complained to the device not working. So we've had outliers and instances that just allow us perspective on what all do we need to build for. And but I think the reality is, Srini, that whilst we can keep talking about conditioning, I think it's more the conditioning from a very consumer emotional centricity, sanguinity standpoint, where is the consumer seeing the experience compromised by virtue of speaking to a machine or not? And I think that's the biggest part, where in our kind of products, unlike what Rajneesh and Resha have to deal with, this is a product where the indulgence levels are very, very different. Where you want the ability for a human to tell you the settings, where you want somebody to solve for a problem that you can't navigate necessarily yourself, and hence the challenges are slightly different. Also, I think the difference lies in the fact that we were a digital first brand, and we started out by virtue of having only digital distribution. So for us, that was a game changer in terms of how the consumer interacted with the brand. And therefore some of those experiences have been built over a period of time.
That's pretty interesting. So Srini, how are brands globally deploying this technology, subscribing to it? What's the popularity going on to the Western and the Eastern Hemisphere?
So I think, look, most of the brands traditionally have looked at messaging mainly as SMS, because it's been the oldest messaging channel. So if you look at probably all the brands here and around the world, SMS has been the steady factor across the last 3 decades.
Correct.
So, but in the last 10 years, what we've seen is that consumers have started adopting what we call as IP messaging apps, which is WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Insta, and a whole bunch of them. Then in certain countries like China, WeChat, and things like that. So what's happened is now that there's a consumer base that has been built up. Now brands are wanting to get onto that platform because they want to engage with consumers, and those platforms are all inherently conversational. It's a two-way communication. So that's how the evolution has happened. Like even today, most of our consumers use SMS as the primary messaging service, and a lot of SMS is largely one way and transactional. And what they do is that they try and convert that one way transaction into a two-way conversation. I mean, they take it from a transaction to a conversation on a WhatsApp or Insta or something like that. So that's really the maturity curve. And then you bring in structured bots to begin with, where you have simple Q&A and structured Q&A that you answer. Then you bring in more advanced NLP capabilities where you can actually understand dialects and things like that, and then start bringing in more complex capabilities. So if you look at a maturity curve, that's typically how it goes. With
No, and then and in continuation to your answer, I mean, like, what are the kind of disruptions that we are looking in this technology in the near future? How do you see those disruptions?
So I think we are at this point where I think it's more of that the early majority phase. If you look at the product life cycle, where today most of the brands are now creating WhatsApp business accounts. So it's that adoption phase where everyone's getting on to the bandwagon. And then within the bot capability itself, I think the next frontier is really, like I said, can you build native language models, where especially in a country like India, where people are able to people write in different ways, and then of course voice is the other thing, where you automate voice bots, and voice bots can understand what you're speaking and then interpret that. So those are some of the game changers that we see coming in the future.
Interesting. Rajneesh, like your thoughts on, what are the kind of game changers or what are the kind of disruptions that you think, you wish to see with the bots?
So one of the disruptions that I just talked about, that, rather than just answering queries, if the bot can actually convert to commerce, I think that's where every company is going for the revenue. So anything that can bring in revenue, I think that's most important. To offer support or to answer queries is fine. But if actually, a bot where there is nobody actually, so if let's say there's millions of potentially people who have don't have your app, but actually you are sitting in their WhatsApp list, like Srini just pointed out, that's the best place to be. And from there, if you are able to get commerce using the bot, because it is so seamless, so effective, so familiar, right? So then obviously that becomes a source of revenue. I think that's where, and I'm telling you why, because this technology is just emerging. Even if you speak to WhatsApp, they are just kind of productization wise, they're just trying to evolve the product. So I think that's where I'm saying that my need will be, because there are a lot of gaps in the product right now.
Resha, do you think, I mean, like, in the coming days, the chatbots can handle end-to-end conversations with the consumer, starting from the first discussion, to completely solving their queries?
I have been a child of this generation, which has seen everything happen. So I believe that it will happen, whether we want it or not, or whether it can or not. I believe there will be a day when technology will and it will happen super fast, because that is the accelerated way that we're going. I do think it will happen. Whether it will happen very, very soon, no. Because I think there is customer behavior changes over a period of time. We've definitely put customers in a place that this behavior is going to change and language is going to change. I think Japan is very evolved as far as humanizing communication is concerned, because they have been literally interacting with things which are not human. So I'm just saying that it will happen. It's not going to happen immediately. From Rajneesh is completely right in terms of solutions, whether we're discussing WhatsApp compatibilities or whether we're discussing it anywhere at all, we will have to bring communication, technology, everything converge, and human behavior. We have to give it enough time. We'll get there, but not immediately.
Interesting. What's your thoughts? I mean, like, what are the disruptions that you foresee happening with the chatbots in the near future?
I think there are two chasms to cross, Dinesh. One is the tech chasm, and I think Srini spoke about some of those. And I think the voice bots are definitely the future, because they, in a way, humanize a part of the experience, and you are able to build higher relatability. The other chasm that we need to cross here is the conditioning and adoption. And that's from a very consumer standpoint. And I think that's what Resha was alluding to, that at the end of the day, you have to realize that we are at a phase where there is a degree of adoption to accepting this form of communication. And I think one can't necessarily in our positions predict as to what that inflection point is going to be. and what will bring about the paradigm shift. But the fact is that we are definitely and most certainly moving in that direction. There is a definitive shift. There will be early adopters. There will be some who will keep resenting it. But the fact is that that's the way forward. We don't have a choice if we really want to master communication for the masses. And that's the only way possible, where you'll have to use technology and democratize the experience for a much larger audience, consumer set. And I think putting a finger on the timeline is not possible, but I think we're headed there.
That's pretty interesting. We're getting a lot of audience questions. I'll put it in front of you all. So the first question is, some digital service companies like Cred are doing away with helplines. And I think it's too early, specifically where live financial transactions are involved, where we might need to raise a red flag at the very instant. How do you think?
So I think this, in a way, takes off from what we were talking about, Devesh. I think that there is a general sense of discomfort and trust deficit on speaking to a machine.
Right.
Not realizing that probably, if you ask me, it's a much more secure means of having a conversation. The fact is that it's too early to do away completely.
Correct.
We've had instances in past, without me naming organizations, where businesses in e-commerce space decided that they will only operate via the app and do away with the consumer experience. But the fact is, the consumer determines the experience for you, not the other way around.
Right.
So we will only know in due course of time to whether eliminating human contact completely is the right way forward or not. But of course, it's a radical step that Cred's decided to take. So we'll only know in time.
That's true. That's true. And you also mentioned, with time, as Resha mentioned, with time, there will be a day when the entire end-to-end thing will be taken care of. We might just not be ready for that, or there's some bit of it. The next question is, how do you think we can create mindshare for our company's bot engagement app? That space is already so crowded. So what do you think, will keep consumers engaged other than issue resolution? I think Srini, you should take this.
Yeah, I think the key to that is to not create, look at the traditional media of websites and apps. And as Rajneesh was describing, build a bot, but have the bot reside and live in a messaging app. I think that's my answer to that. And that way you ensure that you're there in an intimate space with your consumer, and you're not competing with too many other brands. Otherwise, I don't think companies should look to. I know there are many companies who have built brands around the bot itself, right? So if you look at if you Google like world famous bots in the US, typically you will find, but it's not necessary for every brand to build a brand around the bot itself. It is a part of your journey, and it is ultimately a connect with your brand, the corporate brand or your product brand that you're trying to build up. So yeah, that's how I would address that.
Interesting. There's this next question. In offline market, where upgrading the customer can be done easily through personal selling, how can the same be done in online business through AI or ML? I'm opening it to everyone. Whosoever wants to pick it up.
The rules of the game do not change.
Okay.
Like I've been saying through, right? A salesman who knows his product the best and is able to observe and understand the customer better than any other salesman is able to sell more. That's the simple rule. The same goes for any AI or bot. If you understand your product and what you're selling, whether it is banking or life insurance policies or cars or whatever it is, and if you know your product and and then what data are you having for the customer? So if let's say Resha's in sugar cosmetics, and then some men, I don't know if men come to your website or not, but I'm saying if somebody who's a man who comes to your website, and you start selling, which is like a very lipstick. Obviously, you do not know either the customer nor your product, and you will never be able to make the sale. So if you are able to understand the product and you are able to marry it with the customer, and then the best match, and that's where the AI can actually help you, give you the entire data of the customer, not only their demographic, behavioral, their transactional data on one side, and then what are the products which will best match this, and then go for it, and then you can convert the sale. It's the same age-old way. That's a new way of doing it using the technology.
Great, great.
To answer Rajneesh, apparently, as per GA, a lot of men come to our site and shop, but I think that is mainly because women may be shopping through them. Having said that, they're all welcome. But I agree with Rajneesh. I was just going to add something to this. I personally think cross-selling and upselling actually becomes easier and to scale with bots. So it's a very, very natural journey, because you have data points, you understand the customer, you understand what you can give them. You also can, I think many people have asked how to make it a little different. I think it's like any other content, you entertain, you engage, and there are many avenues. Only thing is right now people are not very receptive to all these avenues, but eventually they will be. Creds of the world are going to make it easier for all of us because behavior shaping is happening right there.
So, the last question that I'll ask you all, and after that I'll close the session, is that, do you see more number of brands subscribing to this AI-powered conversation technology, to enhance their customer experience or create more seamless experiences? I'll begin with you, Resha, first.
As we create more unicorns, of course, I mean, jitna scale pe business karna hai, jo kal possibly nahi tha, today it is. The brands will have no choice but to do this. The smarter brands will do it very, very well, and with the right partners.
That was a headline start, as we have more number of that can be a newspaper headline. Great one. Utsav, what's your thought?
So I think there should not be a prescriptive approach to it. I think brands should decide in their journey from a very so at all points in time it's a toss up, right? You have to realize that this is a problem that you're trying to solve, which is emanating out of one, scale, and two, ease of communication. You have to be able to standardize the experience for the consumer. So there are various reasons that will trigger companies to adopt it. They should not just because it is the right way to go. I don't think that's the truth. I think Rajneesh also mentioned earlier that most businesses now want to do it because somebody else is doing it. So I don't think conformity is going to drive the decision on this. It has to be a case of whether it solves for the business problem. And if it does, then why not? And I don't see no reason for there to be a hard-lined, so to say, approach to this, to whether businesses should do it or not. In my personal opinion, I think as businesses are digitizing themselves, for the seamlessness of the experience, this would be definitely an avenue that most people will end up eventually engaging in. And I do see the adoption rates going up.
Great. Rajneesh, what do you think? Will more brands be, using this technology?
Eventually, yeah, it's a great technology. So like Utsav said, eventually you have to just decide what point in time, right? Not every technology will suit every business at all points in time. You have to realize whether you're ready, what purpose. Are you going to use it for support? Are you going to use it for commerce? Are you going to use it for lead generation? What exactly are you going to do with the bot, right? Because see, we are all limited by the time, energy, money, resources that are there at hand, right?
Correct.
And you have already got 10 different projects going on with you. So you have to decide whether, the bot is the most important project, or if it is the most important project, what is this project going to do to your business? Right. Whether it is revenue, whether it's bringing down the number of customer calls to your live agents, in what way it is going to support the top line, bottom line, whatever you want to do, right? If it is not that, then just because somebody else is doing it and band-aid from the top and Srini is a great guy. I like him and he's come for a pitch. I like his deck. Let me do it. I don't think that will be ever the reason. But overarching statement will be obviously it's a great technology and everybody at some point will have it on their digital assets.
True.
And I can't agree more, Rajneesh. I think it's a very add salt to taste approach right now. If you want to marinate the bloody thing in brine, just go for it. But it supports the cause. And I think there is no doubt that for businesses like us who've been doing this for some time, and Rajneesh who's now probably pioneering in his line of work, the fact still remains that way of viewing it from a very one-sided lens. Need to look at it from a very consumer lens to when is the right time for the business to start engaging with the consumers using some of these tools at disposal.
Precisely. Srini, your thoughts before I end the session?
Yeah, so in GupShup, we have this mantra, we call it one-on-one with everyone. So I think creating a segment of one is no longer a pipe dream with the amount of data that's available. And as long as brands would want to have that intimate one-to-one conversation, knowledgeable conversation with millions of their consumers, then it's inevitable for them to get onto the messaging and the conversational messaging bandwagon. And we believe that it's going to be the third wave in the digital era with websites, mobile apps, and now messaging.
Great, guys. We've had some really interesting points that came out through the discussion, and talking about at what time, at what stage of evolution one should deploy, and the most importantly, we have to clearly think about the objective that it is driving for you, before going forward. With that, I come to close the session with you. Thank you very much, for sharing your time with us. It was lovely interacting with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Devesh. Thanks. So,
thank you, everybody. It was seriously a very, very good conversation.
Very
Learned
nice.
a lot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Learned a lot. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
Bye.